But I'm telling you, I know, but this particular brush just really lets you do it all. I literally was not even going to make a video like this until I realized, oh my gosh, this is an all-in-one brush. This is an all-in-one brush. All right, we're gonna look at the sediment brush inside of the Gouache Studio set. I'm very excited because this brush on its own can create some really beautiful effects. It's going to give you buildable texture that you're able to then add to with brush strokes and then also create more of a blend all in one brush. So let me give you an idea for how this works as I fill this little folk art rabbit. So the brush itself, if we were just to look at the brush, you're going to see some variation here. You'll see that with more pressure, you have these thicker, more bold, more opaque strokes, and lighter pressure is going to give you this nice textured paint, almost a pulpy gradation with the paint. Like if you've ever opened a tube of paint and it kind of separates and it has that grit to it, desirable or not, we've got some texture in a unique way with this one. So what I want to do is fill this rabbit with a bit of all of this. In one stroke, you can see I was able to cover a lot and also have this transparency. As we go over that again, we're able to build that texture on, have natural brush strokes, but if we go on the side, you can actually start to buff some of that out while keeping texture around it. So let me show you what this looks like in action. When we do this, depending on the amount of pressure that we're setting down, you're going to have different variations of transparency. So if I was to outline this area here, press down a little heavier in here, lighten up around here, you have some blur, you have some of those brush strokes, and then we have some actual looking like it looks like paint strokes. Let's say you have that hard line that you don't want in there. On the side of the brush with really light pressure, that's where you can start to just buff it out. See how it does still leave some of the brush strokes? So it has still some of the texture in there that we do want. Sometimes I feel like when we try to buff out some of these brush effects, it ends up having too much of a smoothing effect, almost like a blur filter. And that is not what I wanted to do with this brush. This brush, I wanted to maintain texture while only removing the hard lines I didn't want. So do you see what I mean? It has that nice wash, like it looks like we actually layered paint on. This area looks like I colored it on. So I don't usually attack that until I have everything filled that I want to fill, because maybe I'll have something that overlaps that I do like, and I don't want to overblend. And I find that if I can just fill all of the main color first, then I can go in and buff out, if you will, what I don't want to be too much of those hard lines. So I went smaller when I was doing the outline because I still want that effect, but I just want it to be a little more precise so that I don't have like, the edges. Well, the edges would be fine in that case, but sometimes you don't want the edges to be too soft. So like right here, if you go to the brush that you're on and you tap and hold the eraser, it's going to grab the same brush that you're using and put that as your eraser so that when you do erase, it's still going to keep the same impact along the edges. So right here, instead of having like a straight hard line, if I make this larger, you'll see it better. You still have that same effect. I'll turn my draft layer off. Do I like all the edges? Smooth that out a little further, and then right here I could use a little bit of a sharper edge, but from there we don't have to use an eraser, we don't have to use a blender brush. If you go on the side, do you see how something like this, let's say I like this stroke but I just want that to be a teensy bit softer, I can just go in with the edge of the brush and smooth out that brush stroke. It's almost like you're picking up or you're smoothing out like a watercolor hotspot with a damp brush. So it's made to work with you. You don't need to use a whole bunch of extra techniques, or you don't have to press undo a whole bunch. It's just going to be this nice, seamless experience. But I want to encourage you to keep some of that texture in there. I just think it looks cool. The more you press down on this brush, the more it's going to give you that wet paint effect, and the lighter will give you more of that dry brush hitting the canvas effect. But the lighter you go, it's actually going to start removing some of it. So you'll get the hang of it as you use it. It's really fun. I found that I was switching brushes a lot just to like play around when I was building this set. And then I realized I had created an entire piece using only this brush because I was having so much fun with it. It's because I was having such a good time just using this. So now that I have a base down, I'll start adding some additional colors in here so that we can really see it start to form out. It looks like I painted this on paper, which I just am obsessed with. Okay, so I'm keeping the same brush. I'll just change the color I'm using. With this pack, you can use multiple layers or you can paint directly next to the layer that you're already working on. And I know, especially if you're used to working along with me, you know I'm always all about new layer for every color, new layer for every color. However, this pack, I want to encourage you to play on the same layer because you'll see how some brushes will pick up a color next to it and it starts to act as if it's a little bit wet. So for example, if I change the way my pressure is working, you can see it start to kind of blend. This one doesn't have like the wet pull necessarily that some of the brushes will, but it does still play nice with other colors next to it in a way that feels painterly. But look at that stroke. Ah, it's so good. So now, see how that looks like this big, big paint stroke. I don't want it to be like so obviously one spot, but that's where you can use the side with a little bit of pressure and just put in some of that texture. And then it looks like, you know, you have this fun paint texture. This is the first time that I feel like I can confidently say, let's paint together and mean Procreate. I have heard it a million times and I'm like, we're not painting, we're just drawing with these Procreate brushes. But honestly, I worked so long on this brush set because I wanted them to work how I would actually paint and what I would actually want my brushes to work like. I'll say this is as close to perfect digital texture for gouache as I've ever used. Yes, I'm biased, but for a good reason. So I have a lot of fun with these. And remember, this is just one brush out of the whole pack. One. I'm going to demo others too, but this one is the one you're getting today. So I'm just getting real fine on the lines for the outline here, and then I'll get a little larger to fill in the rest. Really lightly, you can just buff out like this hard line. No problem. No problem. And then it looks like actual paint. That's what I like about it. It looks like I actually painted that with a paintbrush. We have the imperfections in there, but we still have that fine line. And then when I want to add details, I'm going to paint right over the same layer. I do have this draft on a separate layer. So this is just allowing me to put in those fun details over the top. I'll turn the draft layer off and see how we're looking. For these, I just want them to be pretty simple. So I think I'll keep some of the transparency in a few places because I think that that is part of the fun of working with paint. And then right here, I'll just go back to the pink and paint over that. And do you see how it just kind of like wanted to blend with it? And it makes it look like it's real paint. I think it's so fun. And then finally, I will just make this come all the way down and use it as a liner because I like that kind of jaggedy, inky feel that gives that kind of organic line. And I just want to do these in a few places because I don't want to like call out a bunch of outlines, but I do want it to be, you know, to feel like it has a little bit of definition. And I love doing this with just like quick little lines. And usually I use a liner brush for it, but I'm telling you, I know, but this particular brush just really lets you do it all. I literally was not even going to make a video like this until I realized, oh my gosh, this is an all-in-one brush. This is an all-in-one brush. So I'm really excited. Okay, let's see. I think that looks good. Okay, now I do want to show you one other thing because this set comes with paper textures also. So let's say you want some cold press watercolor paper. You can create a new layer on top of what you drew and just draw over the entire paper. I'm not going to worry about the top because we're not using it. But you can see that cold press texture in here. So you just go to the new layer and select multiply as the blend mode and turn the opacity down. And then you have this cold press effect. So it looks like it's actually painted on the cold press. So this is with and without. without. Okay, so that's that brush. I hope that you love it. It's called Sediment in my gouache pack. Have fun. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.